Winnipeg is back in the big leagues and over the moon.
Welcome to the landing strip with Nik Lynam and Mikey Garcia, presented by From Financial.
Welcome back to the landing strip, presented by From Financial. As what have I been telling you folks? Kick the feet up. This tank is too far behind for anything to slow it down. Kick the feet up. Enjoy the highlights. Enjoy the little things. Today was a dagger, folks. The Winnipeg Jets drop the first of two back-to-back here that really matter in this tank run. I should probably sit up a little bit.
I adjusted for you.
On Jonathan Toews' night back in Chicago. We get a big ovation. We'll talk about that. We hear about this is a must-win game and the money on the board. And it leads to the Winnipeg Jets being shut out for the fifth time of the season. This time against the Chicago Blackhawks, who enter tonight one spot above them in 30th place. The St. Louis Blues, who are now 30th place, right above them, are one of those other shutouts. And the Seattle Kraken, who are just slightly above them, are also one of those shutouts on the season. They come out strong, play a pretty good game, and then for the second period, they fall asleep again. They let one by, and this game is toast. At the end of the day, anyone still telling you there's a chance this team's making the playoffs is lying to you, and that's okay. You got to learn who you can trust here. The Winnipeg Jets come out of today with better draft position. They also fall 9 points behind wildcard 2 now. So after a 4-1-1 six-game stretch, they have gained a total of 2 points on the wild card. 2 points. And they've only passed the Vancouver Canucks, who will finish 32nd. The comments seem fired up about our situation here. We'll get into it. Though I got to tell Sugar Hill Sleep, bro, you weren't even alive when Toews was on the Hawks. I'm not that young, unfortunately. I'm only, 6 or 7 years younger than Toews? That was my favorite player back then. So to see him celebrated will be a big topic. I can't talk about this alone, though. Mikey, how you doing tonight, buddy?
You know, we try to keep it as positive as we can around here, and I think we all know what we've got to do on a night where the Jets maybe don't get a win, but we can still celebrate in our own way. So let's hit the music.
Don't stop thinking about tomorrow. Don't stop. We'll soon be here.
It will soon be here. We are another step closer to that draft pick that we've all been coveting. Every loss, unfortunately, every loss is a lesson, and that lesson might just be that we're drafting at the top of the draft this year.
Hey, that would be the best case scenario. Before we get into all of that, though, how do we start the show now? Let's get into the Tank Commander Awards. It can go to a group. It can go to a player. Who is going to get the Tank Commander Award leaving the Chicago Blackhawks versus Winnipeg Jets in Game 48 here?
Right on. So for my Tank Award tonight, I'm giving it out to the entire first line. They're getting this one for the absolute lazy play in the offensive zone on that very first goal tonight. Nobody wanted to retrieve the puck. Nobody really gave a shit about where the puck ended up. And unfortunately, it ended up bouncing to Dickinson, who was able to wire one past Hellebuck. So, the Tank Award, if it wasn't for that, we might not have had, an empty net goal at the end of the game. This could have gone to overtime, and they could have actually won. So I'm giving it out to the first line tonight.
Yeah, hard to disagree with you. Actually, the rare time We're on the same award here. But I'm going to go to the chat first over on YouTube. Matt Rothman's tank commander is, I'll just say, the whole offense finishing today. Mackie says Connor again. He was a ghost. Sugar Hill Sleep says DeMello. Rihanna Alicia says my tank commander award is JT Knight. Not JT himself, but the Knight. The Jets clearly hate special nights 99% of the time. And I got to say, my first reaction, the Jets come out hot, and the first commercial break, you get the ovation. And I'm like, oh, this is going to kill the buzz, isn't it? As good as it was, and we'll get into that. Mikey Cranberry also points out you sound quiet.
Oh, okay.
If we can work on that.
Can do.
Thank you, Cranberry. Matt Rothman also says Connor was abysmal tonight, though Jets Empire goes Cole Perfetti and says my patience is done with him. I'm kind of surprised by that take on this night, in which I actually thought this was one of Cole Perfetti's best games on the season. We'll get into that as it goes on. Graham Bancroft goes, first line, put me to sleep. Second line, only line, doing anything offensively.
Yep.
And that takes me to my tank commander tonight. The tank commanders of the night, I'm going to the same spot as you are. It's going to be the first line. Because all week, when I'm debating retool versus rebuilds in different segments of this fan base, all I hear is this idea that the Winnipeg Jets have a first line that is one of the best in the leagues, that is elite. And I continue to push against that conversation. But if you had an elite first line against a team in a game that was must win, the 30th place team in the NHL sitting right there for you to keep the streak alive, and you look like that. This was not an elite top line tonight. Hell, it hasn't been an elite top line for some time. Hell, it hasn't even been that in the last year and a half. But if you had an elite top group, this is the type of game you want them taking over, and they were nowhere to be found in that regard. In fact, them being lazy after a lost draw in the ozone creates the momentum that leads to Sandberg with a soft gap. Yeah. Sandberg had a soft gap there. Jason Dickinson rips, and that's the difference in this game. I'm going the top line as the tank commanders tonight on a night where, if they're truly elite, this is what you want to see them performing.
Yeah, this is the game that you would expect them to take over. It's not a good Chicago team right now. They've been struggling. I think they've lost 3 in a row coming into tonight. They weren't some juggernaut, and you could see that from the way that the game went, especially in the first period. The Jets had a fairly decent first period, and it just once again came unraveled in that second. That's become such a staple for them that it's become a concern, I think, that we really need to figure out what it is about that second period where, you know, the thought process kind of falls out the window. We're more prone to those kind of just boneheaded, you know, mistakes and things like that. It's become so much of a thing. So on a night where you would have hoped that the Jets' best could have gone out there and, you know, outdueled Chicago's best, instead we got a big wet fart.
For sure. And one last tank commander here, as Frosty Winnipeg says, I want to see Zhelkin tomorrow, so I will give the tank commander to Nemestikov to help with that. On the second period thing, I think it's a combo of a few things. I thought that was the period you most saw Chicago's pace work against the Winnipeg Jets. I really think with how their roster is built, that long change in the second period is just so much for them to kind of manage here. And we see it routinely over and over again. And I thought this was a game where you did see Chicago's pace take advantage of some of that.
Yep.
I did think, especially early on, the Jets were a lot better at getting pucks to the hard areas of the net. There's only one save from Hellebuck tonight that really stands out to me, and that's that Connor Bedard one. It did feel like Chicago wasn't overly dangerous. It felt like Winnipeg was getting to the hard areas, though it almost felt like Chicago was what we talk about with the Jets come playoff time, where the Winnipeg Jets struggle net front in the playoffs, right? We see them get exposed when teams work up high, get pucks to the net, and other teams are simply out-muscling them, getting the rebounds, causing screens, tips, all that, right? That's been one of the Jets' biggest problems. I found Chicago to be very strong in those areas when the Winnipeg Jets got to the net, and that felt like a difference in this one. Chicago's penalty kill felt like a big difference in this one. We'll get into that. But let's start with the big story of the day. Johnny Taves. Today's his night to come back to Chicago. Talked about how it was a weird scenario. We get shout out to TSN sending Sarah on the road, and we get the whole appreciation of the event.
Yeah.
I'll start with you, Mikey. What was your thoughts on what we saw today from the Chicago faithful when it came to Jonathan Taves?
Yeah, the video package alone was spectacular. I don't know how you can watch that and not have just all of the feels and emotions, right? Especially if you were somebody who was into the NHL during those fucking alien, Hawks days, where it was absolutely insane to watch. Pre-Jets coming back. As a Habs fan back then, it wasn't always the best run of games for us, but so getting to see a Winnipegger in Taves go out there was always really special. So the fact that they did such an incredible tribute for him was wonderful. But the fact that we got to see it on the broadcast was just huge, right? I'm so appreciative of that, because a lot of times we don't get to see that. We hear about it once it comes back from commercial, and then we go online and we got to try to watch it. And this was it was really special that they did it right on the broadcast. So yeah, shout out to both the Hawks and to TSN.
Yeah. As you over on YouTube, first comment I've seen on it, Rihanna Alicia says that welcome back, that standing O was beautiful and amazing, well deserved. I had some comparisons over on Twitter tweeted at me saying that reminded people of the Rocket Richard ceremony in Montreal.
Yeah.
And we know Montreal does it right. This was an example today of we know, folks, we're trying on the volume. I'm getting texts and comments on it. This was a night that was always going to be big. Jonathan Taves was the captain for 3 runs to Stanley Cups, 3 banners that will live forever in Chicago. And he disappeared from hockey for a few years. This is his first time coming back to play against them. And I thought the Chicago Blackhawks faithful did a remarkable job. Honestly, that celebration for him took me back a little bit. Like, it didn't feel like it was going to end. It was, 3 minutes? And they probably would have went on for 10 more and still went nuts on his next shift. You see Mr. Captain Serious lay the guard down a little bit, get a little emotional, get a little into it before saying, okay, enough is enough. Really cool to see for someone that really does deserve it. And it was one of those things, me and my brothers were talking in a group chat tonight and was like, wouldn't it be awesome if the Winnipeg Jets found themselves into a player like that was able to do something like that for the Winnipeg Jets one day? It's one of those things you watch and you just think about and you appreciate what JT did for that market, and you wonder about maybe that comes to Winnipeg one day.
I think we already have that in-house. He's going to have a statue built for him. It's going to be the tallest statue ever. He's going to be, I think we have that in-house. You don't think so?
I did have someone say that ceremony was an example. I think it was Darren Ross on Twitter said that ceremony gave us something to look forward to when Logan Stanley comes back after he's traded. And it made me giggle.
Yep.
Barnt 1995 points out, Taves is an absolute giant in the Chicago sports landscape. Taves, Jordan, Ditka, and Payton are the Mount Rushmore of Chicago sports legend.
Yeah.
Hard to argue that.
Longest serving captain in Chicago sports, period.
And another way to look at this, Nicholas at Night says, this was an example of the gulf between a historic franchise with a legacy of winning versus an org that likes to pretend that they're in the same class. Hard to argue there. And Rihanna Alicia says, the Winnipeg Jets did JT dirty. How much money was put on the board tonight and gone to waste after that performance and not finding a way to win this one?
Yep.
But keeping her moving. We've been talking a lot about the special teams. Chicago's penalty kill puts on an absolute masterclass on how to settle the Winnipeg Jets down. That number one power play unit's become a bit of a weapon of the late.
Yep.
And they gave them no time or oxygen at all. Really admired the aggressiveness of that penalty kill. I thought the Jets' penalty kill did real well with Chicago's power play, which hasn't scored in their last 10 opportunities themselves, except for the third one. The third one is when it finally felt like Chicago had broken through a little bit. We talk about that Hellebuck save, which should have been. If you think about this game and what it all meant to the Winnipeg Jets core and this team that thinks that they're going to make the playoffs, which is just, it's over. But you think in that framework, you see Connor Hellebuck make such a massive save on Connor Bedard that it would start turning things over, and it doesn't. Would you see from both sides of the special teams today, would you give Chicago more credit for the power play not doing much? As Pat Fina says, there were 0 lanes out there. And what'd you think of the penalty kill versus Chicago's power play tonight?
So starting with Chicago's penalty kill, they've been hot as hell lately. They've been riding an absolute heater. Arniel even mentioned it in the post game that was something that they knew coming in tonight that they were going to have to look at, and it showed. Right, their penalty kill really put the Jets' power play right to sleep. Even though they've had a nice run lately, they've actually been able to get some good puck movement. They've been getting some success there. So the fact that Chicago was able to put them out tonight, I think that's more attributed, I think, to Chicago than anything. They've just been on such an unreal run with the penalty kill right now. As for the opposite side of things, the fact that the Jets were able to shut down that 5-on-3 was really great. Chicago was not able to get set up. They were just disjointed all over the place on that power play. So they, a little bit of luck and I think a little bit of effort, and they were able to keep themselves safe from losing it that way.
No, hard to disagree. Like I said, I thought Chicago's penalty kill, there's a reason that this is the second best penalty kill at this point in the season for a team that has been so poor in the standings. The big bodies, the aggressive reads, they didn't give the Jets skaters any oxygen. On the power play, on our penalty kill, thought the first two were very strong. I thought the third one was when the dam started breaking a little bit, and then nothing kind of comes. That all being said, a couple more combos. So Zhilkin came up. I'm expecting him tomorrow night. Would you expect him back into the lineup tomorrow night?
I would hope so. I'm just wondering what they're going to do with the lineup. Vlad coming out would be the easiest for me. I want to see Barron back up with Lowry. I thought Barron's game overall tonight was pretty noticeable in a positive way. I don't like him down on the fourth line anymore. I'd rather see Zhilkin centering that fourth line and have Barron play with Lowry. You're going to get more speed out of it. I like Barron's game with Lowry. Lowry works better with somebody with speed too, as opposed to Vlad, who doesn't really bring that aspect of the game. So for me, yeah, I'd have Zhilkin in on fourth line center for tomorrow and have Barron back up with Lowry. I'm just curious if Arniel's actually going to make that change.
Yeah, in the past, he's been making these type of changes on the back half of a back-to-back. So we'll see what that looks like.
We know for sure Phillips is playing tomorrow. That's the only thing we've heard.
So Salmonson's that sick, eh?
That's what Arniel said. Yeah, Salamonson is that sick, and Phillips most likely plays tomorrow too.
Okay, so we'll get into that in a second. If you're looking at ice time, Tanner Pearson only plays 9 minutes tonight, so maybe that's the first guy coming out.
True. Yep.
I do think Morgan Barron stood out, as Cranberry said, again. And we're going to have a little bit of a Morgan Barron conversation in the second half of the show in a way that I don't know will be too popular. Wara, 33, says Nino, 62, takes a seat, and he takes that penalty to start this game and put Chicago into that first power play.
Yep.
Let's go into we'll see what happens. I'm expecting Zhilkin in. We'll see. Back-to-back against St. Louis. Here's another one. Someone texted me today with the thought, do we see Connor Hellebuck go back-to-back tomorrow out of desperation?
I hope not. That would be the stupidest move, to be totally honest. Although that would be the most pro-tank move, to be fair. Any goalie back-to-back. I don't care if you're Connor Hellebuck, whoever. the stats don't line up for a goalie performing well in the second half of a back-to-back. The guys in front of him are tired. He's tired. Play Eric Comrie. Eric Comrie performed well in the win that he got not that long ago. We know Comrie is good for the spot starts. This is exactly the type of game why you have a backup. It's tank approved if Hellebuck goes tomorrow, and I can definitely see Arniel doing it. But from a just regular hockey team NHL running standpoint, that's the worst idea.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think.
And yeah, sorry,
should play him.
Palmer Lane says, desperation for what, though? The Jets need 26 and a half wins out of the next 34 games if they have a chance at making the playoffs. Come on. Desperation.
You know what I'm talking about when desperation. I'm expecting Comrie versus Hofer, but it wouldn't surprise me if they go to Hellebuck on a back-to-back with what they think they're doing in these games.
You're right.
And hey, tomorrow's our last show before a month break with my surgery. Tomorrow will be the final nail in the coffin if the Winnipeg Jets lose. Anyone still even remotely bringing up playoffs or taking a run needs their head examined. They need their head pulled out of their ass. If the Winnipeg Jets lose tomorrow, everything should be about Team Tank and what the Winnipeg Jets should be doing to enforce that. It already should be there.
It should be.
But I'm just saying, you losing tomorrow takes you to a whole other level where anybody and most people that do believe that stuff aren't living in reality yet. They're living with the aliens at that point. It's so far out of touch. Let's go to Isaac Phillips, though. Comes in to this game, gets his first game with the Jets. The real revenge game today.
That's right.
Coming back into Chicago. And I see over on Twitch, Grant Bancroft says, it also feels like Phillips being in for Salo and Stanley having to swap sides really hurt the transition game. We see Luke Shen partnered up with Dylan Sandberg, though after special teams, there was a lot of mixing and matching with the defense. And then we see on the third pair, Stanley offside with Isaac Phillips. It turns out they basically run 5D the whole game, with Phillips only seeing 6 minutes. What do you think of Isaac Phillips? What do you think of the Jets decor tonight, handling only 5 guys pretty much most of that game?
Yeah, the late scratch for Salamonson due to illness really kind of puts a wrench into the whole works. So it's hard to really judge them on it, right? When you're cut down to essentially 5 guys for the majority of the game. Phillips, the minutes that he was out there, I don't think actually were terrible. I thought his skating was fine. I thought he was able to kind of read things pretty well. You could tell that he hasn't had a lot of time practicing with the team and, getting the reps in on where he's supposed to be and learning those things. That's kind of probably why you only saw him play those very limited amount of minutes. But I don't think that he had a disastrous performance. I don't think that there was anything to really chide him for. It sounds like he's going to play again tomorrow from what Arniel said in the post game. So yeah, we're going to get to see a few more minutes, hopefully, than just the 6 tomorrow and kind of see how that goes. For the rest of the D-core, yeah, it was a mess, but that's kind of to be expected. You had half of the D who are either not in the, on their offside making a debut, or their name is Luke Shen. So it's just a bad matching for, about half the D-core tonight. And yeah, it showed on the on the forecheck for Chicago, having just success after success in the transition game for the Jets, not being able to get anything moving from their own end. It was pretty obvious, but again, I find it hard to fault them too much on it, considering that this was literally a last second change.
As Al Camino points, he's only 249 games away from being good with John Shannon's logic.
That's right. He's got a season.
And Infinity Comment points out, I enjoy watching Shen shovel pass it every time and sends passes down the offense's own boards because that's literally all he can do.
Yeah.
He made sure to lose that one guy in front.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That hell he has to make a save.
And he takes his his one a game, lazy penalty of either holding or hooking. You can, if there's sites that take
the one, actually.
Sorry.
Hard for me to blame him on that one.
It was a little soft, but he's good for one of those every single game. You can set your clocks to it.
Yeah, interesting play the way that one develops. I thought there was 3 defensemen that had solid nights. J-Mo obviously leading the way with, 24 minutes at 5-on-5 today, 23 minutes.
Yep. Just
I
below
thought this
his,
was another strong game from his partner in Dylan DeMello.
Yeah.
This might have been one of his better games this year. I thought the broadcast did a really good job of spotlighting that one shift where he's all over Connor Bedard and effectively stops him from getting an open look net front. And then the Stanimal. Are we going to get a steroid test at this point? This was a night the confidence was flowing. Again, in the offensive zone. He is jumping in and creating things. So I like those three guys' games. Sandberg had that one big rush. I think he got caught on the first goal with his gap. So this was a bit of a good and bad for me from Dylan Sandberg. And then, Luke Shen is Luke Shen at this point.
Yep.
And all I got from Isaac Phillips is this guy's a better skater than half RD, but I don't know if he could play hockey at this level, if I'm being honest here.
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see. The skating's there at least. So that's half the battle. We'll see if there's if there's an NHL player there or not. And tomorrow we're going to have to see it a little bit more.
And Grant Bancroft says on the topic, the Stanimal looking like he might get us 2 first-round picks. There was some trades in the league so far. We're going to get into all of those afterwards. Rylan Medwick on this topic says we have a 1D and then 2 third pairings. Probably one of the worst units I've seen as ice since the entire decor was injured 5 to 6 years ago. Barton says Stanimal was flying out there. Hard to argue. And Ian Vivian says another solid game by Logan Stanley. I agree with Nick. Resign him. ... now. Yen. Timeout.
Hold on.
You agree with Nick, but Nick is not telling anyone to re-sign him. Because I said that out loud, you got to make sure to clear the air. You do not
clip
re-sign.
that.
Yeah, we do not clip this as an endorsement. Nick is not proposing that. But it was a good game from Logan Stanley.
And,
as he continues.
Having him on the offside, while tougher for the defensive side of things, honestly makes the offense a little bit easier for him, right? It opens up the shot a little bit better. It's like putting a forward on the opposite side on the power play, right? Give him a little bit more to work with in the offensive zone. So, yeah, he was flying out there tonight. Like we've always said, offensive blue line in, you might have something there.
He even was starting a little bit in the neutral zone today.
Yeah.
There was some moxie coming up there. And the last bit on this topic, Barton says, made a lot of good breakout passes and carried the puck well through the neutral zone. If he plays like this leading up to the deadline, he's going to have some serious value. And I'm just waiting to see the announcement of that big trade. But speaking of big trades, the Gabe Vilardi trade has been a big trade for the first and second lines of the Winnipeg Jets. We talked about the first line and what we saw out of them or did not see out of them early in this show. I thought the Winnipeg Jets' best line again today kind of become a bit of a regular occurrence. What'd you see out of John Taves, Cole Perfetti, and Gabe Vilardi on a night where I was convinced if anyone was going to score, it was going to be that line tonight?
Oh man, if the Jets just trade for a 2C at the deadline, they may have a really good time. Oh, sorry, that was 2025. My bad. Sorry, I got lost in there. They absolutely have become the most dependable offensive line for the Jets right now, which is not something you probably would have thought going back about a month or so. It goes to show you, I think, one, what Cole Perfetti feeling healthy is really doing.
Looks like.
And 2, what having the time to work alongside Gabe Vilardi is doing. I point back to last season, Cole Perfetti and Nick Ehlers, while stylistically maybe not a great match to play on a line together, after a while and once they had enough reps together, started to actually put some chemistry together, some really good stretches of games. And I think you're starting to find that a little bit now with Cole Perfetti and Gabe Vilardi. It just took a little bit of time for Perfetti to kind of figure out where Vilardi wants to be on the ice, make those type of reads. Perfetti's a smart guy, especially when it comes to, seeing the game one step ahead. And I think he's finally utilizing Vilardi in that sense. And Taves himself as well has been a lot better, especially down low in those kind of greasy areas. He's been able to kind of establish himself in that spot. So Yeah, the that second line is working right now. They're winning minutes 5-on-5. They're getting on the on the box score fairly regularly. And outside of one lazy penalty today, which I'm willing to give Cole Perfetti the benefit of the doubt on tonight. I thought this is one of the best games we've seen where his name doesn't show up with a goal beside it.
Yeah, this topic brought a lot of comments out, so let's start diving into the chat before I give my thoughts. Over on Twitch, Grant Bancroft says, might have been Velarde's best game. Won so many puck battles. And we did see Gabe Vilardi quite active along the boards today and coming out with the puck. I thought him and Taves are both really strong on below the line winning battles and finding Cole Perfetti net front, who I thought was all over the net front. I thought this was Cole. I've said this a couple times, so I guess this is just him being healthy and back. This was another game where I thought Cole Perfetti's skating stood out in a positive. Yeah. That looked like a confident version of Cole Perfetti, who was breaking up plays, taking it the other way, getting open for his line mates. And then Jonathan Taves working those corners, working off the walls, and getting pucks to Cole Perfetti net front. I see all three of them contributing to the success of this line. It's been their best line since moving forward, or since moving Vilardi up. And then there's some more comments over on YouTube where Cranberry says, I'm telling you, Vilardi is the X factor. And he's been in our show saying that a few times over the last few weeks here. Barton says, best game I've seen Cole play all year. God be in the conversation. Cole Perfetti was all over this one. Rihanna Alicia says, crazy how the second line with Taves from the start was horrendous. But now it's like our top line. Holy, look at them cook. And speaking of cooking, the three of them today, in 12 minutes and 13 seconds of 5-on-5 time, outshot their opposition 17-6, and the only thing they do is not score. More comments on this group here says, real DFB, Vilardi is the fit for that line. The trouble is, Iafallo is not Vilardi, and now that first line is stalled. And hey, I gotta say, if you have $20 million of your stars on that top line, why is it stalled? Why aren't they carrying the bus there? Something to think about.
It's funny. We had to leave the two of them together because it was the only offense, and they were carrying the team through. Now we have to leave the two of them together because they're the two anchors, and we don't want them bringing down the second line.
Yeah. Matt Rothman says, Vilardi is very underrated. Honestly, now that the first line has looked like shit, it looks like he was holding those two together. Rihanna Alicia says, Fetz and JT are finally making sweet, sweet line chemistry. Now this is my favorite rom-com. Are they going to kiss out there?
I mean, hey. No, I won't make the joke.
Are the Winnipeg Jets going to be a feature on season 2 of Heated Rivalry?
I'm in.
We will find out.
Let's do it. I'm in for that. I will say with the Vilardi thing, I don't want to attribute maybe too much of the slump of Scheifele and Connor to Vilardi being off of the wing. I'm still wondering if there is some hangover after the Olympic announcements on both sides, one of a relief and one of an annoyance, and nobody's just kind of picked their game back up for it with that break coming up, both knowing what the fate of it is now, not having that extra piece of motivation. For me, I still think it's a little bit more of that than Vilardi being gone, but I don't want to take away what Vilardi's done on that second line because it's completely changed the way that they've been able to have a second line at all. I'm not sure if I want to put it all on him taking that away yet.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Sugar Hill Sleep, not too thrilled with us, saying Perfetti has absolutely nothing, and Perfetti skated hard once in one shift. How is that a positive? I'd go rewatch that game because that, based on what we just watched, I think you might have some biases towards Cole Perfetti that are not allowing you to see when he does play a quality hockey game, because this had to be one of his best of the season. I think you're letting some preconceived notions get in front of you there.
Yeah, one bad penalty tonight, but outside of that, like with the puck he was good, without the puck he was good. That line blanked the opposition in terms of high danger chances, 5-0. Like they weren't giving up stuff out front, they weren't giving up stuff in front of the in the valuable areas, and they were still getting their own chances. So yeah, I thought Perfetti did everything but score a goal tonight.
100%. Wanted to bring up one more thing before the From Financial Faceoff. You mentioned the Cole Perfetti penalty. So he gets caught tripping. Oliver Moore there. And Oliver Moore was someone that stood out to me on this night as a guy that could absolutely fly. And if you were on the old NHL Jets Twitter streets back in 2023, he was the popular name. A lot of people that followed the draft, a lot of people that followed hockey and wanted the Jets to draft. Instead, they go with the guy that can't skate in Colby Barlow, one pick ahead. And when we talk about the draft and development failures, I think it was on display here when there was a big part of the community that was all over the Oliver Moore falling aspect of the draft. And he's up making impacts on games. And Colby Barlow won't be in the NHL for a couple of years at least.
Yeah, it's a tough one to watch when you get some of those hindsight, what could have beens when you're screaming it ahead of time. You know what I mean? It's funny when you're like, hey, here's something, and then you go to it, a few years later, and you're like, yep, there it was. I think about that all the time with a certain draft that we moved up in a first round. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, it's a little frustrating when you have that kind of what if moment, that what could have been.
Yeah, and what could have been might be the topic of the From Financial Faceoff. If you're new to the show, we want to know what tipped the scales between the Winnipeg Jets and Chicago Blackhawks on this night. We want to know what was your From Financial Faceoff. Mikey, let's dive into it.
Let's hit it. Right on, we'll be opening the phone lines too. 1-204-800-0409. 1-204-800-0409. Get on the line. Give us a call. Let us know you're from Financial Faceoff and anything else you want to talk about.
Couple last things on that draft. Infinity comment, it says the whole 2023 draft was trash, in my opinion, but I hated that pick too. Matty Rothman points out Barlow is now struggling heavily in the AHL.
Yep.
And Rihanna Alicia says, it's a shame Barlow is not becoming what the Jets clearly expected him to be. But that's a continuous trend the Jets like to follow. Let's get into it. Mikey, what was your From Financial Faceoff between the Jets and the Chicago Blackhawks?
We touched on it a little bit earlier too, but it's the fact that the Jets were just unable to deal with the Chicago forecheck tonight. And that was directly related to the fact that half of our D-core, 50% of it, was just completely out of sorts. Like I said, either making an NHL debut, having to play on an offside, or your name is Luke Shen. It was just a bad night for half of them out there. So they could not deal with Chicago's forecheck, couldn't establish any type of transition game. It just... it was a tough night overall for that aspect of the Jets. Hard to blame them for it again, with things kind of getting thrown into the mixer at the very end there, but still it stood out to me quite a bit. That was a big difference maker.
No, I think that's a fair one when you look at how this game was played. I'm going to go with, I had seen earlier in the show, Choices TK had said, Chicago just looked like a team that wanted it more and shut it down in the third period. In the last 10 minutes, seemed to get every loose puck and win every battle. Those were differences in here. Matt Rothman's From Financial Faceoff was not having Chaz Lucius for the bottom six to help out with the secondary scoring. Could have made the difference on this night if only Chaz did not retire. Rihanna Alicia's From Financial Faceoff is that monstrous save by Helly should have tilted this game back into our favor. But alas, we didn't take advantage of that. It felt like it. When I saw that save, I said, there goes Team Tank tonight.
Yep.
We're going to have to hear about the playoffs for another week. And then it doesn't. Somehow they don't rally around that one. For me, on this night, I'm going to go the From Financial Faceoff is the Chicago Blackhawks net front coverage. I thought the Jets did a good job of getting bodies there again and trying to get shots through, which has been what's been effective for them. And I thought the Chicago Blackhawks did a great job getting bodies in front of pucks, getting to the rebounds, clearing out that net front from secondary opportunities so that they could not beat Spencer Knight on this night, I'm going to go with the Chicago Blackhawks net front coverage as the From Financial Faceoff.
Yeah, beating the Jets at their own game tonight.
Yeah. Hard to argue there. Rihanna Alicia points out, Chicago made us all remember how the Jets replaced speed with slow and veteran. Like it was, once again, it was so obvious, so in our face. And I think you did see it with some of the transition. I think the Jets did a good job when they established the O-zone today. It felt like they controlled the hockey game when they were able to get there, and it wasn't built on that speed. I think what Chicago did really well was use that speed when there was chances to turn pucks over or apply pressures.
Yep.
And we just know that this team can't catch up when that sort of thing is happening.
It's another reason why I want to see Morgan Barron back up with Adam Lowry. They're not able to utilize Barron's speed the same way at center on that fourth line than they are when he's on Lowry's wing. And for a team that is so sorely lacking in speed, to take away your kind of your best guy in the bottom six who can actually do that is not worth it in my opinion to have him center that fourth line. So hopefully we get to see that change.
Fair thought. Rylan Medwick's From Financial Faceoff is an uninspired effort on a night emotion should have been sky high. And I got to say, watching the first few shifts, Adam Lowry gets out there on the second shift of the game. And I want to use this to pivot to something Rahul asked us. But you could tell the emotions were high. Adam Lowry goes out on his first shift and throws 2 monster hits. And I'm like, oh, here we go. The money's on the board. The Jets are coming out. And then the second period happens. And you're like, nope, things aren't changing for this team. But speaking of Adam Lowry, Rahul asked us a question in the chat. How are we feeling? Not even entering year one of a 5x5 with Adam Lowry's play so far this season.
I've had a tough time with giving Lowry too much shit this year, coming off of the injury that he was coming off of. It's going to affect his skating. It's going to affect his speed. It's going to affect his timing. So I'm still willing to give Lowry the benefit of the doubt for a big chunk of this season. I'm real curious to see what he's going to look like coming out of the Olympic break. He's going to have all that time off to get the body right, get kind of things feeling good. And, hopefully we see back to the Adam Lowry that we're used to seeing, right? That very dependable game that we get night after night. If it's still not there, if it's still really, really spotty, I'm going to start to be a little bit concerned about the injury and its long-lasting impact. Because a guy that plays the game the way Lowry does, you're always going to be worried about injury. You're always going to be worried about when is the body going to start to break down, because he plays at such a high impact, high intensity level that it's bound to happen at some point, right? Father Time is undefeated. So I'm just really hoping that it's just a little bit of the lingering from the injury, getting his timing and things back, that the Olympic break will help with, and we'll see more of the traditional Adam Lowry that we're used to seeing. But yeah, I'm not ready to toss him on the scrap pile yet.
Yeah, clearly this year has not been good for Adam Lowry. And I think, especially at this point, would have been expected coming off hip surgery. Normally it's taking guys that full year or most of it, and then you see them back the next year. Though this is where it's interesting. And we talked about this after he signed. I think it was a pretty big risk for management to make that signing before watching him really play and seeing what happens, especially when you knew this is a guy that's been tied to Winnipeg for how long. He likely would have signed at year's end if you needed to. The other side of it, though, where I think this is all going, I've made it no secret. I think this is going down and things are going to be pivoting. That having an Adam Lowry, I do think is a negative asset at $5 million, if you ask me honestly. And there's a scenario in my head where he's a rental right now, and I would have been really happy with that scenario, but I don't get to live in that world. I do think we'll know a lot more about the next 5 years of Adam Lowry next year when he's a further year removed from the hip surgery. But it wouldn't surprise me if more than half that contract he skates like Johnny Taves. So we'll see where that goes. Yeah. But at the end of the day, with where I think this is going, and this is the only plus about it, is I think having Adam Lowry around when this thing goes through a transition period, he's the guy you want around. As we talked about, like at the time of the extension, why I couldn't beat it up too much. I think this thing's coming down. I want a guy like Adam Lowry around as a culture carrier. I don't want to make the mistakes of like Vancouver choosing a JT Miller over a Bo Horvat, who was their culture carrier. Never mind that quality level.
Yep.
I do think when you look at where I think this is going, having him around has that value.
Yep.
And we'll see where it goes because he's clearly not been himself. I don't think we should have expected him to be himself, but there is more risk. And I think that's what Rahul is really pointing here when you actually break down that situation.
Yep, 100%. The guy that a guy that plays the game like that, you're always going to worry about that. But as Turd Ferguson points out over on YouTube, worst case, I'm more than okay paying Laus $5 million to carry our culture than paying Wheeler $8.25 to carry it as captain. So, yeah, that's exactly how I feel about it as well. What he brings in terms of like the intangibles and the leadership, the things that the Jets thought Matt Hendricks brought, Adam Lowry actually does bring to a locker room. So I'm more than okay with that. And the example of Horvat versus JT Miller is such a crucial one that people need to look at when it comes to where you want your organization to go, especially in a down time, right? Anybody can be a good leader when things are going well, when you're winning, when everything's going positively. Anybody can be a good leader. It's when things are really tough, when you're losing games, when you're not even just losing games, but you're not meeting the expectations that you feel like you've set for yourself and for the city. You want the right type of leader in charge at that point, and I think Adam Lowry is that guy.
Yeah, no complaints here on that side of things for me. Some thoughts in the chat on this topic. Mr. Meowcat points out he's coming off an injury, and Rihanna Alicia points out Laus is not fully back to form post-surgery, and it shows. So I'm trying not to be too on him about it right now.
Yep.
Matt Rothman has been quite unsatisfied with his play, but at the same time, we knew that'd be the case based on his recovery. That's partly why I thought the extension was quite risky to get done. Al Camino says, I'll give him a pass, but signing him in December costs him at least $1 million a year. I think there's some validity to that. And on the topic of what we're talking about here, Rihanna Alicia says Adam Lowry is going to be the reason that the team culture remains positive. We can't lose that and fall back to old habits.
Yep.
So it's safe to say, I think everyone's seeing what's happening on the ice very similarly. I don't think anyone wants to hide from it. I think a lot of people have time given the hip surgery and the history of that surgery. But there is also a lot of risk with that deal. Probably not the shining moment. And Chevy has not had a lot of those in the last 18 months. I got to say, in preparation of this Logan Stanley contract extension, I might have put together a 22-tweet thread of Kevin Cheveldale's last 18 months and how he got here. And it was pretty sickening to actually connect all the dots. We'll get into that at year's end or when that contract happens. But let's pivot because trades are happening around the league. And trade bait boards are shifting. Some good news on one shift and bad news on another for the Chris Johnson trade bait board. But let's start with it. Calgary starts their tank trade season by trading Rasmus Andersson to the Vegas Golden Knights for Zach Whitecloud, Abram Wiebe, a conditional first-round pick in the 2027 draft. If it's a second-round pick, if Vegas wins the Cup this year, it becomes a 2028 unprotected first. And then they get the 2027 first-round pick. Flames ate half of his salary, which was actually less money than Zach Whitecloud. So Vegas actually gained a little bit of cap space. What did you think when you saw Rasmus Andersson traded to the Vegas Golden Knights? And what did you think of the package?
Well, I was absolutely shocked by what Calgary did. They're not that far out of the playoffs, I thought, right? They're only 4 points back. They should be right in this, I thought. That's what I've been told. No, so it's the rebuild is on. They've finally started it, right? We've talked about how you can't call it a rebuild, you can't call it a start until you actually trade a large piece, a piece that is a big part of the roster that is actually transformational. And, that's one of their big tickets. That's one of the ones that they've been waiting to cash in on if they weren't able to put something together. So it's a refreshing, direction if you're a Flames fan, I would assume. In terms of Vegas, they paid up for it. They're really making a push there. They're bringing Anderson, reuniting him with Hannafin. It's going to be interesting to see if an extension or something like that comes out of this as well, considering the retention that's going on for this season. I'm not too sure how Vegas is going to go going forward, but they seem to always be right in there, right? They just are always going to want to make a trade to try to keep themselves relevant in that conversation.
Yeah, this was an interesting one. In the sense, this has been one we've been waiting on since the summer, it felt like.
Yep.
Rasmus Anderson to Vegas was always his preferred destination. It was the only team Calgary was even talking to last year. And then we heard late Friday that there was an agreement in place with Boston, but he would not sign an extension there. And he finds his way over to Vegas. Don't mind the package for a rental. I think Zach Whitecloud carries actual value if they wanted to flip him for even more assets.
Yep.
He also has 2 extra years of term, so you could kind of delay that process if you'd like him on your roster to kind of keep things steady for young guys that are coming up, as we've kind of talked about some of this stuff. First round pick in 2027. I don't mind betting against Vegas. Like, at some point, the age and the money they put into the roster, the bill is going to come due. What's interesting, Calgary owns the next 3 first for Vegas. Now they don't own the 2028 one if they don't win the cup this year. But if I'm Calgary, I want that 2028 one because that feels like the potential falling off period.
Yep.
But this is how you collect assets. It's crazy. Rasmus Anderson was actually drafted a year before Logan Stanley. They put all that draft and development time into him, and they found themselves in a position that they had to trade him. Can you believe that? Can you believe teams actually take a player, take a 10 to 11 years that they've invested into, and actually were able to trade him for value moving forward? Is that allowed? Because the way things are talked about in Winnipeg, I don't think that's allowed. Did Calgary break a rule here?
I think they did. I mean, they're going to just upset so many people this way. They're going to hurt his feelings. How dare you do this? He was only drafted a year before Stanley. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Are you
2015.
And we've only gotten now to Logan Stanley playing a halfway. Okay, great, cool. Yeah, no, that's great.
And now we got to pay him.
And we're going to.
Another trade happened today in the old tank battle. Speaking of tank, Calgary got a point. Lost to New Jersey in overtime.
Yep.
But they gained another point on the Jets today. Good news. Another trade from the Tankers. Vancouver trades Kiefer Sherwood to San Jose for 2 second-round picks. And what was the prospect's name there? A defenseman, Clayton something. What did you think of the Vancouver Canucks trading Kiefer Sherwood to the San Jose Sharks? And what's interesting about both those deals, interdivision for both of them.
Yeah, you don't see that a lot. Teams wanting to make those type of deals within the division. So I was a little bit surprised at the destinations for both, to be honest. The other thing that kind of surprised me with the Sherwood trade was that it happened already, right? This was a guy that it seemed like a bunch of NHL teams were kicking the tires on, had legitimate interest in for wanting to add for a playoff run. It almost felt like you maybe could have, done a little bit more of a bidding war, tried to stir up the value, maybe, even more so than making a deal, right now. So I was surprised at the timing, to be honest.
Name of the prospect, thank you, Pomerlane, was Cole Clayton. And Al Camino also points out Rasmus Anderson was a second-round draft pick in 2015.
Yeah, Stanley would have been too, but, we decided that wasn't going to happen.
So it's interesting. Kiefer Sherwood, $1.5 million. And this is a player that is the embodiment of a human nail gun. Skates like the wind, pounds the piss out of you. And in the last 2 years, he's figured out how to score some goals. Now the shooting percentage, he's on a bit of a bender. I don't know if he's going to be a 30-goal scorer. But this is the type of player that every single contender is looking to get into their bottom six and into the mix. Think Brandon Tanev, but actually good at hockey.
Yep.
And actually can play with a stick in his hands. Think that type of player. You know how much Brandon Tanev was loved here? Kiefer Sherwood's actually like a good hockey player that does all those things and more. And there's a lot of talk, and it's funny. I got a lot of texts with, ooh, that trade feels late first, because that's what was kind of coming out, is they were looking at for a late first.
Yep.
If you ask me, honestly, I think 2 mid-seconds. Right now, the second for San Jose is 44th. If they're going to be a wildcard team, it's going to be in that same range.
Yep.
So you're looking at a top 50 pick. Likely going to be a mid-second round pick next year as well. If you ask me honestly, I would rather 2 second-round picks in the middle of the round like that than a late first all day. After like 18th overall, you're just throwing darts in this league in the draft. Give me more lottery tickets. Give me more assets to turn into other players. So I think Vancouver actually comes out of this really well for the level I believe Kiefer Sherwood really is. And you know what? It had me sitting there asking, what would Morgan Barron fetch the Winnipeg Jets at this deadline?
Ooh. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Oh, younger, same type of player. I don't know if he has the national name right now that, but that's interesting. If you're really focused on kind of stripping this down right now and trying to maximize on the value for the players on the roster, that's a real good spot to look, especially with the market being set at this type of price. And Barnt 1995 on YouTube points out that Alvin traded him this soon because Sherwood's wife is expecting, and they wanted to be settled in their new city when the baby comes. So apparently that was a favor done for the player to be traded sooner rather than later.
Makes sense.
So yeah, if that's an interesting thought though, Morgan Barron. If you can get 2 seconds for a Sherwood type, that's I maybe would start picking up the phone and listening a little bit, even though I fucking love Morgan Barron. I think everybody here knows how much of a Barron fan. I was getting called, insane for suggesting he should get some elevated minutes last season. But yeah, if you're going to get, late second, a couple early first or early seconds, I can't speak today. A late first or a couple early seconds to mid seconds, that's you have to listen. You have to.
When you look at the most competitive teams and how close they get to the cap, Morgan Barron has unique value at 1.85 mil for this year and next year. Think back to the Tanner Jeannot trade and what Tampa tried to pull off there with the whole draft class for Tanner Jeannot. Now they got it wrong on that player. We saw similar with Barclay Goodrow. We saw similar with Blake Coleman pre-breakout. I think Morgan Barron to other teams and contending teams would stand out as an asset to contenders trying to fill out that depth with pace, aggression, players that can play up to that. Choice of TK points out Barron should bring more just because he can play center and wing. Yep. There's some flexibility to building your lineup. 6'4", he could skate. I do wonder if there's a late first out there for him. If not, a couple seconds and probably a better prospect because you're getting the extra year.
Yep.
And I see Mr. Meowcat says, I thought you wanted to get rid of the core pieces first, ? Now Barron. Here's what people got to wrap their head around, because it was not popular when I tweeted out today. Thinking about how much Logan Stanley and Morgan Barron could bring back this team. We're talking about a bottom 6 player on one of the worst teams in hockey. Those are the types of guys that you trade off. It's not a needle mover. Everyone's so fixated on this idea. We're going to dump our trash and we're going to actually trade what we got for our trash into much better guys. You're going to have to make trades here somewhere. And Morgan Barron seems like that guy. Barton says, I was just about to say, Barron's situation has Tampa Bay written all over it. I think so as well.
Yep.
Maybe a Florida. Those are the types of teams, those teams that are up against the cap that can identify a guy that could jump into their mix. And because of the cap side of it, I keep reminding people, We're talking about players like stocks. These are assets. The cap drives all. I like Morgan Barron as a hockey player. He's been one of the better stories for this team this year.
Yep.
But with where the Winnipeg Jets find themselves, they should be listening on a guy like that, because you might be surprised what he brings back via trade, especially when you are pigeonholing him as a 4C, as you talked about earlier in the show. There is value to contenders in this player. This is a player you should be listening on. This is not a player that is make or breaking the Winnipeg Jets next season. Let's be honest with ourselves here, folks. This is the type of stuff you got to be doing in this type of position. We can't be, we're holding on to 16 of these guys and we're going to fill in 4 spots and everything's going to be back next year. That's not reality. This is not reality. As Rihanna Alicia points out, also, people have to remember, this is all talk until this team actually does something about it. We can talk all we want until this team lays their cards out. We're all pitching ideas here of what to do in the spot the team finds themselves here. And Ryland Medwick says, if we are going to retool, it has to be those bottom 6 forwards and third pairing D. Nick is 100% right. Dime a dozen and the easiest to replace. It's why you don't pay Logan Stanley. It's why you at least float a Morgan Barron out there where it's a seller's market. You're seeing that everywhere. You might be surprised what a player like that gets you, and you'd be doing yourself a disservice not to listen on him and Logan Stanley. That's where I'm at with looking at the trade market right now.
Yeah, especially on a guy like Barron, where if this was still a contending team, if they had actually made the right moves in the offseason, and this was, a team that was still right up at the top of the league, like they told us they were going to be, nobody would say trade Morgan Barron, right? No, that wouldn't be on the list of things, because he's got a role, he knows it, like that. So it's not that we want to trade Barron all of a sudden and keep the core in this, but we're trying to find creative ways to try to make this retool work in the short term, because the Jets are being gifted an absolute get out of jail free card with a high draft pick if they can get to it at the end of this year. So you want to capitalize on that. You want to try to put as much around that as you can, get as much value for the pieces on the roster that aren't the core pieces, if you still think this is the core you want to go around, right? We know that that's what the Jets as an organization want to do. We know that they're not trading the core. So we have to try to think of ways that are creative to, augment that. And if you can get again, it's all about the value, right? With the Stanley thing, turning a third pair defenseman into the value that gets you a second line center or winger, right? Because of you're trading it up for first round picks, right? Or you're using that in value to try to go get a established second line center or whatever. It's the same thing with Barron. I love Barron, but if you can use a bottom 6 winger to go out and get a first round pick and turn that into a second line center of some kind, or it's good business at the end of the day. And yeah, it's tough when we get attached to the names on the back of the jerseys. I do it too. I don't want to see it happen, but if we're going to get creative with it, that's what you got to look to.
Couple more thoughts on it, and I want to go even more in depth with this a little bit here. Ryland Medwick says, have to trade good assets sometimes to bring in good assets.
Yep.
That's all part of it. Palmer Lane also says Barron will probably get a better chance to shine when he's not pigeonholed as a fourth liner. Rihanna Alicia says exactly the team we had last year was not the team we needed to have a trade Barron talk. The team this year is that team, and you have to have these talks.
Yep.
Harshivan Prawana says, hope we draft 4 to 7. I can't lie. I don't want anything to do with a retool. And that's our resident Calgary Flame fan. He knows all about where that trouble brings you. But I also want to pitch this too, and you see this a bit in baseball. So if you're a baseball fan, I'm going to contrast the two ideas here. At the NHL trade deadline, draft picks by the teams trading them are seen as less valuable than ready now players, right? You're trading off future value for current value. And then you get to the offseason. Teams are going to lose in the first round that thought they were better. They're going to lose in the second round, thought they were better. And then teams are going to be preparing for the draft. And those draft picks gain value at that time of year where the draft and refilling your prospect pool and pivoting becomes more prevalent. So at the deadline, you have a chance to overinflate what you bring in draft assets. And then those assets become more valuable 4 months down the line, just based on how the NHL calendar works. You see this in baseball where if you're following the MLB, and you're seeing all these mega contracts handed out, who are they all going to? They're all going to hitters. Why? Hitters are more projectable, so it's a safer bet for that kind of money. There's a few pitchers that get the big money, but those elbows might blow out at any minute, blowing a $30 million plus investment like that. However, in season, when the MLB gets to the trade deadline, it's not those hitters who are projectable that have the value. What's the most valuable thing at the trade deadline every single year, Mikey?
What is it, Nick?
Pitchers.
Yup.
Finding bullets and giving up tons of things for those bullets for the stretch run. Trying to leverage how an NHL calendar works for your asset base is part of these retool and rebuild conversations. A guy like Morgan Barron, quality hockey player. He's also 27, turning 28 next year before he hits UFA. This is the type of time where for a year and a half at that value, you're likely going to get more in draft pick compensation that can be reused to flip and get a higher elevated player or move towards your future young asset base than what he is worth to the Winnipeg Jets. This is how the game is played at a high level. These are the types of things we got to be thinking about. It's easy to think about, oh, let's get rid of Gustav Nyquist because no one wants Gustav Nyquist. Let's get rid of Nino's money because he's getting a little expensive for what he is. Those are the easy things. Everyone understands that stuff. The game at the highest level is played understanding this type of stuff. Understanding when a player might be overvalued and you can get the most out of that asset. Understanding when a pick might be overvalued and you can get more out of that asset. This is the game. And I'm trying to put you on here.
Yep. It's the same thing when we talk about using the draft, the cap space, right? Using your cap space at the deadline to take in some bad contracts for teams and take in some assets, right? Get paid to take that shit on. Why not? You have it. It's sitting there. You can't carry it over. It's not coming with you. It's those type of things that the Jets need to do if they want to make this work in the short term.
For sure. I still think they're not gonna, but these are still the things, whatever race you're going down, you have to be doing to give yourself the best type of chance, as hard as those conversations are to people. But with that being in mind, on this topic, and we'll get into the 3 stars, or just do a tank sim, whatever you want to do here. On this topic, we watched Jason Dickinson score the first goal today, his 6th of the season. And Frank Saravelli today was saying, based on the conversations he's had, he expects Jason Dickinson to net the Blackhawks something like a 2nd-round pick and a prospect in a trade. If Jason Dickinson's getting that, open the doors and start listening, because you're going to be surprised with some of these assets that no one wants to talk about might be worth it for the Winnipeg Jets and what they can do moving forward here.
Yeah, it's either you're on the team of you believe in this core and you should want to do everything in your power to try to fix this quickly for them, because they're not getting any younger. Every day that goes by, they're another day older, and it doesn't get easier, unfortunately, the older that you get. So you should either be completely on board with these, different creative ways to try to make this work in the short term, or you understand that, maybe this isn't the time for this core and you kind of want to strip it down. But to be a fan of the mushy middle where you're just going to have your franchise, fall into obscurity, it makes no sense to me to say, I don't want to do things that are going to, help them quickly. I don't want to do things that are going to help them in the long term. I just want to watch them lose 2-0 to the Chicago Blackhawks.
How great, eh? On this topic, we'll get into the tank sim right at the end here. Infinity comment says, that's fantasy hockey, baby.
Oh, of course.
Parmaline says, do we know if Chevy can make these decisions at such a high level? I think we know that he can't for the most part, unfortunately. No. Barton says, I totally forgot Nyquist was on this team. He's made a regular appearance into the press box at this point. Barnt also says, Saravelli also saying today that Patterson is looking like he's going to be gone by the deadline. Canucks are getting tons of calls for him. Oh, Barnt, I thought he was the worst contract in the league and no one would want him. And all of a sudden, there's a ton of interest. That's what you told me last week.
I remember that.
Yeah, I might understand this game a little bit here. Shocking to find out. That 27-year-old,
Uh,
his whole career ahead of him, might be traded.
long neck.
Shocking.
Shocking. Long neck big scoffer over on Twitch says the tank's in trouble. Jets may be rolling up in a King Tiger, but Vancouver is countering with an entire platoon of Shermans.
Oh, hey,
That
we're
Vancouver
not keeping
tank.
up with the Vancouver tank is the best built tank in the NHL. We're shooting for second
We're shooting
place
for
the rest of the year.
Yep,
31st is the spot. Let's make sure we're drafting
that's
the
the
top
sweet
4.
spot.
Yeah, we're not keeping up with that Vancouver one. Rihanna Alicia points out, I can never work in sports solely because I have always get emotionally too attached to my players. And I always hate that we have to trade them or let them walk talks. Oh boy.
I'm with you.
The
It's
rest of
hard.
this year might be tough on the show for us. Al Camino points out, and I was having a conversation with someone this week about this actually. When you look at the difference between how many former pros are GMs in the NHL versus baseball, Al Camino points out this is why baseball guys don't run baseball teams anymore. NHL teams need to get into the 2010s.
Yup.
And I think this is a real problem in the NHL and why we see a lot of boneheaded shit, like potentially an old head GM giving Logan Stanley 5x5. Hockey guys and hockey players typically move from their home at like 16 years old, and they don't go to school, and they get the creativity coached out of them. They get taught there's only one way to do things, and then they get executive jobs of billion-dollar companies and don't understand how to manage assets. It's clearly where the NHL is so far behind at this point and where things need to change. It's no secret an agent like Bill Zito is schooling the league right now.
Yep.
The best coach of this generation, John Cooper, was a lawyer before jumping into the sport.
Yep.
You're seeing people that are able to think outside of a box versus ones that only ever learned one box their entire career. And I unfortunately think Kevin Chevaldea fits in the only ever fit in one box in his career.
Yep.
Barnes, I'll also bet you no problem. Barnes says Pedersen at 50% retained. Sure, why not? Full value, not a goddamn chance. I guarantee they move him at full value and get 3 to 4 pieces for him. And guess what? On his next spot, all of this is going to look so silly.
Yeah.
So silly when he's not watched. Infinity Comment also adds Kent Hughes was an agent. We just saw what he did with your
Montreal Canadiens.
Habs. Yeah,
Yep.
sorry, blank there.
No, all good.
What I find interesting about Mike Greer, former player, whose brother was GM of the NFL, so maybe there's a little bit of interaction there because he was really creative with the cap when he came in to turn things around with San Jose and strip things down. Al Camino says, give me the Wall Street guy anytime, and I couldn't agree more. And to end this topic entirely, Real DFB says, the Jets should listen to any offer on any player on a last place team who could be untouchable. Bang, bang. Real DFB, thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The Winnipeg Jets should be listening on virtually anybody in this spot. Thank you for laying that out. There's people that are having trouble with the idea Logan Stanley and Morgan Barron might get traded from a last place team. Guess what? There should be bigger things happening if you look around the league right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, can't forget to shout out Eric Tulsky. The guy's a fucking scientist. He's got a PhD in chemistry, and he worked in nanotech. Like, it's not a bad thing to have outside opinions and outside experiences and outside skills coming into the sport. We're still in a year where fucking Zane Perek is getting shamed for telling the truth about hockey players not having personality. Are you fucking kidding me? And we're still going like, yeah, these are the guys to do it. These guys, you know? So, yeah, come on now.
Interesting conversation all around to end it here. Pomerlane says exactly, we need more business people in the front office of these teams. Rylan Medwick says it's too bad we are so stuck in the past with the boys club mentality. I believe we have the lowest, smallest analytics department in the league, which is unacceptable for a small market team looking to get any edge.
Yep.
And Al Camino gives our audience a podcast recommendation on the way out called The Astros Edge. Let's get into the Tankathon sim, and we'll work our way out here.
All right, let's do it. In 3, 2, 1. Your Winnipeg Jets fall 2 spots to third. Or sorry, 1 spot. They fall 1 spot to third. We're drafting 3rd overall. Stenberg and McKenna are both gone. Nick, who are you taking?
Ooh, this one's going to cause a stir. Again, I'm still working through this. I've said I value the center thing. I might go Nepo, baby.
Oh.
I might go Malholtra's kid.
Whoa, interesting.
I'm in that phase right now where I'm learning a little bit
Yep.
of everybody going on. And I've been on a little bit of a Malhotra kick lately. And I think pro sport is the one sport or the one industry where Nepos really have an advantage. I don't know, man. If they're looking for one potential center, that might be the one.
There you go. There's a name to guys to look into. Manny Malholtra's kid. That's a nice one to take a peek and do some scouting.
I really want Stenberg though. So can we start winning these lotteries?
Yeah, no doubt.
I want to thank you all again for being here, tuning into the program, being here live if you're here live, listening the next day. We will be back as this tank continues to roll. Back in Winnipeg versus the St. Louis Blues for game 49 tomorrow. It will be our last show for about a month. Feel free to stop in. We'll have some fun with it since we won't be doing much content in the coming weeks. I want to thank you for your continued support, and I can't wait to be back here tomorrow facing what might be back-to-back losses at the bottom of this conference and division. I guess we'll find out in 24 hours what the conversation looks like, and we're looking forward to seeing you there.
Right on. Good night, everybody.